currently flying, so this tanker with this air-to-air refueler. From what I understand, it's a modified Airbus A330, which you might have been on as a passenger, but you can also have passengers on board this particular aircraft too, can't you?
Oh, certainly. When we went over to help with the evacuation of Kabul last year, 33 Squadron, we used to embark our ground forces to get them over there. But like I said, they're in the thick of it, these guys. Fantastic unit. Squadron coming through now. Craig is number 35 Squadron. They fly the C-27J Spartans. This is a great aircraft. They've actually currently got an aircraft up in Cooktown as we speak. Community, yes, they do. Community engagement. There's another one, PNG. No rest for our transport squadrons. They're everywhere all the time.
Another one celebrating its 80th birthday this year as well, formed in 1942, operating a variety of aircraft since that time. So it's the Spartan these days.
That's right, Craig. One of their big things for last year was flood relief in Cooper Pedy. Town was cut off, people might remember.
Oh, yes.
And they basically kept it supplied. They were the aircraft which could get in there. No one else could get in there.
We're just seeing the banner of 36th Squadron come through near the Brisbane Town Hall. And this is the squadron that operate that heavy lift aircraft that you might have seen fly down the Brisbane River, the C-17 Globemaster as part of River Fire last year, but its role has been quite varied in the past 12 months.
You got that right. Very busy squadron. They've basically been everywhere. They're involved in the evacuation of Kabul. An amazing effort there, getting rid of over 4,000 people out themselves during a period of 9 days. They've been first aircraft into Tonga to help after the volcano there. Antarctica drops there. Europe, they have been everywhere, and they still are everywhere. They've got aircraft flying today.
Oh, that is incredible, and you know that everyone would have seen pictures of that evacuation in Afghanistan last year. To know our pilots were there, the role that they played, and then to Tonga this year, you know, the first in with aid after that volcanic eruption and subsequent earthquake.
That's right, Craig. Not just the pilots, a lot of ground support. None of this happens without ground support, so we've got a lot of people on the ground there, and yeah, tremendous job.
And this is the Brisbane City Temple Band of the Salvation Army. The trombone's just getting a rest at the front. Don't worry, they'll pick them up again soon, I can guarantee that.
Coming through Combat Support Group and HQ 96 Wing, led by Group Captain Michael Mamana. He's one of our senior officers. Combat Support Wing, they basically supply us with fixed base and expeditionary combat support, plus health capabilities. Wherever Air Force is, you'll find combat support. They have 96 Wing has units from Butterworth in Malaysia right down to Hobart. Places like Sherga up near Weipa and then down across to Perth. We're absolutely everywhere, these guys. Hard working.
The way you describe it, they most certainly are. Members of the Royal Australian Air Force.
All of these units you see coming through at the moment are all part of Combat Support Group. We just saw the health. Those guys, particularly during COVID, have been doing a tremendous job just keeping our guys and our girls being able to do what their role is. And without the health support, we would get nowhere with that. Those guys have been smashed, but they keep getting up for more. Yeah, there they go, looking great. They've got a few here. There'll be plenty out everywhere we are at the moment as well. It would have been a larger contingent, but we're still fighting COVID just like everybody else is.
Yeah. And that really sums up the past 2 years. No matter for the Air Force, the Army, the Navy and the general public, how COVID has affected our lives.
That's right. We're not immune to that, Craig, that's for sure.
So the health support wing based at RAAF base at Amberley.
Yes.
The Brisbane Grammar School band coming through now as well. When you reflect on the scale of operations at Amberley, Rob, how do you describe it?
Oh, look, the last 12 months, Craig, you wouldn't believe it. Just when you think we're through one hurdle, another one pops up. They literally just will not keep coming. At the moment, we've got fresh situations happening which require Amberley to go. The air movement section, which load aircraft, they're busy in the rain today, loading aircraft going places all around the world. It has not stopped this year.
And, well, just in the last couple of weeks, there have been Bushmasters being put on C-17 Globemasters to go over to Europe, which will eventually be handed over to the Ukrainian military. I think it's, 4 Bushmasters per Globemaster?
Look, that varies a little bit there, Craig. We haven't only been the only people getting them across there. Commercial flights have done it, but yes, certainly we've been involved in making sure they get onto aircraft and get over there.
We're seeing the start of the Air Force associations, the City of Brisbane Squadron Association just passing through, which has such incredible history with the city itself. And now the Airfield Defence Association of Australia awarded the Ground Combat Badge by the Chief of the Air Force in 2014 for their role in all conflicts from World War I to present. You would have noticed that badge takes pride of place at the centre of the association's banner. Members have served in World War II, Borneo, South Vietnam, Cambodia, Timor-Leste, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan more recently. The number 2 Squadron Association, originally formed in Egypt in 1917, sent to the Western Front in France and Belgium. It's the only squadron to have battle honours from 4 wars, World War I, World War II, the Malaysian confrontation and the Vietnam War.
You'll see, I'm seeing a lot of Vietnam vets go through there at the moment with number 2 Squadron. Canberra Bombers, they were one of the best tactical bomber squadrons in the war, without doubt.
The number 3 Squadron Association. I just want to give you a little sense of history with their role during World War I. In 1918, the pilots of the number 3 Squadron on a photographic mission were attacked by 4 German fighters led by the famous Red Baron. Despite the fact that these German pilots were the elite of the German air service, the lumbering Australian reconnaissance machines drove them off. Looking for easier pickings, the Red Baron made the mistake of descending low level over the ANZAC front line, where he was then shot down. So incredible history associated with the number 3 Squadron.
This is number 9 Squadron you're seeing pass through at the moment, Craig. Really interesting squadron. They were a naval cooperation squadron in World War II, operating walrus amphibians on our RAN cruisers. They shared the fate of the ships. If the ship went down, invariably our number 9 guys went down with it.
Yeah, and they would have been operating helicopters a lot of that time too, weren't they, Rob?
That's going into the early 60s, and they operated Hueys, UH-1 aircraft, helicopters, and they went to Vietnam, did a sterling job there. They were instrumental in us having success at Long Tan.
Yeah, helping D Company 6 RAR, I know, with resupply missions and the like.
That's right.
So essential, their service.
Okay, here again, Craig, this is number 35 Squadron and RAAF Transport Vietnam flight. But these guys, a quick stat for you people out there. During the Vietnam War, these guys were considered to be the most efficient transport unit of any nation involved. They had 1% of the transport, 1% of the transport fleet, and they delivered 7% of the transport supplies. That's from USAF statisticians.
Wow. You see on the banner the nickname Wallaby Airlines to describe the role that they played during that Vietnam conflict. That looks to be Bayside Brass, just in shot at the moment, and their role keeping everyone in step as part of the 2022 Brisbane ANZAC Day Parade. Bayside Brass, much loved by their local community around Wynnum.
Craig. This coming through now is number 38 Squadron, another transport squadron, no longer flying, but they went right through the war. You can see a Hudson and then a Caribou later aircraft on their banner there. They were flying up in Townsville up until a while ago, where they were renamed 32 Squadron, rebadged 32 Squadron, and flying the King Airs. They're now based in East Sale, that squadron, which is in Victoria.
And to think back, you know, we've spoken about that level of technology change, the role of even drones these days, unmanned aerial vehicles and the like. And then to talk of from some of the aircraft you describe involved with World War I, World War II, through the Vietnam era to what we're now flying in the Australian Air Force. Gosh, there's been a big change.
Look, flying always has an element of danger to it, but going back over the last 100 years, the further you go back, the more dangerous it was.
Well, just look, here we have the 463, 467 Squadron flying the Lancasters with the 460 Squadron and the 466, 462 Halifax Bomber Squadrons. Now, the work that they did was just extraordinary over the many years of conflict. And in Bomber Command in World War II, just to give you a sense as to how dangerous those roles were, only 30% made it to the end of the war without being killed, injured or taken prisoner.
Wow.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It leaves you speechless. I mean, they're heroes. They were heroes. They were getting into that aircraft knowing that the percentages of them getting through their tour were slim. And, yeah, very brave individuals.
There's a quote from Sir Winston Churchill from back in 1940, September of that year, where he said, "The Navy can lose us the war, but only the Air Force can win it. The fighters are our salvation, but the bombers alone provide the means of victory." Peter Tedman, you'd probably take umbrage at that comment about the Navy from Sir Winston Churchill.
Well, I can imagine Sir Winston Churchill had seen the Battle of Britain, and so he knew how important the Air Force were. But yes, I wouldn't like to hear that the Navy could lose the war.
I'll cross that out from my notes for next year. Don't you worry about that, Commander Peter Tedman. He served for a number of years at the Royal Australian Navy, in commentary with you today, along with Flight Lieutenant Rob Hodson from the Royal Australian Air Force. And Rob, for yourself, what was your catalyst? Because you have quite a family history associated with the military, don't you? In particular, the Air Force.
That's right, yeah. My grandfather, my mother's father, joined the Air Force in the late 1930s, well prior to the outbreak of World War II, and served through his career. My father was also a career Air Force officer. I was born on a RAAF base. I was a RAAF brat, moved around like a lot of RAAF personnel these days. They were RAAF brats, as we call ourselves. Yeah, I've always had immense pride for the Air Force, and I'm very proud to be wearing the uniform today. Yeah,
well, formerly you worked with us at the ABC. It's only more recently that you've pulled on the uniform for the Air Force. And what was it like when you first enlisted and took on that role on a full-time basis, given that history you speak of?
Well, I thought I knew about it, but I didn't, basically. It's a different way of doing things. You really have to get up to speed quickly, a different way of speaking, a different way of behaving. But I'll tell you what, it feels great. I would recommend it to anybody. This is the cadets coming through now, the next generation of Air Force you see walking through now. Obviously, some of them have got proud relatives that you can see them wearing the medals of their relatives. And look, they're looking pretty handy. The marching's looking good. They do a lot of work, these guys, on the weekends and at night and during their school holidays. Yeah.
Don't know what. And that's cadets for the Air Force, for the Army, for the Navy. A similar story, isn't it, to try to instill that spirit of service at a young age?
That's right, that's right. Lots of them carry through. I'll just point out to you, Craig, that on the dais next to Her Excellency the Governor is Air Commodore Patterson, who is the Commander of Combat Support Group.
And Rob, that brings a close to the Air Force contingent here. Thank you so much for being here and joining us in commentary. Really do appreciate it. And ANZAC Day, just a personal reflection. What does it mean to you when the 25th of April comes around?
Well, it's one of those days, really, isn't it, where you kind of remember where you are. I'm not going to forget today. There's a bit of rain around, but it's great to see the crowds here. And I'd just like to thank the ABC for broadcasting. For the people who can't be here but who do want to participate, that's very important work you're doing there.
Our Flight Lieutenant Rob Hodson, thank you very much for being a part of proceedings today. For the 2022 Brisbane ANZAC Day Parade, we're looking down Adelaide Street. The rain is still coming down. There have been showers right throughout the morning. There were good crowds at the dawn service at the Shrine of Remembrance, and how important that is. And whether it's, you know, the dawn service here in the CBD or the one that's hosted by your local RSL sub-branch, if you can be involved, it makes such a difference. And to instill that into the younger generation, Peter Tedman is someone who's marched many times, who has been at many dawn services. You know, when you see the youngsters of today waving flags down the street, what does that mean to you?
It's really heartening. It's that the kids are seeing the service that is given on their behalf, and that's why we do it. We do it for a few future generations. You know, you enjoy it yourself while you're doing it, but it's all about our future. Yeah, I think it's wonderful, and I'm amazed to see this many people with the weather the way it's been.
Yeah.
So I'm just so pleased to see them.
Isn't it? Such a privilege to be able to commentate this for you at home as well on ABC TV. We have the Redland Ladies Drum Corps coming down, leading some of the allied services associations as well. The Redland Ladies have been a part of Anzac Day parades for many, many years now. And we see the Royal Marines Association. Their origins can be traced back to 1664. Today known as an elite commando force, they've fought in every war since conception. They've served with Her Majesty's fleets around the world. So you'll see some different coloured berets, the Marines with the blue, or the Royal Commandos, the green berets. And it's important to mention that some of those may have even served with the role of the Royal Marines with the Falklands War, which was 40 years ago.